Health and Wellbeing will be hosting the St. Kitts premiere, followed by a panel discussion for the documentary Below the Belt on May 22nd. This documentary focuses on an often overlooked woman's health condition, endometriosis. Here to tell us about this condition and the documentary premiere are Julia Mandeville, co-founder and Public Health and Advocacy Manager of the Barbados Association of Endometriosis and PCOS, Abi Begho, founder and program director of Lake Health and Wellbeing. We also have with us Ritfeld, a vice president of business development bank from the Bank of Nevis International, and Gillian Carmichael of Branford. Ladies, good morning and welcome to Good Morning SKN.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Oh,
Happy y'all could join us this morning.
indeed.
Thanks for tuning in.
Indeed. I'm just going to put this question out there because I don't know who to point the question to. But can we have the definition for the novice that doesn't know what it is? What is the definition for endometriosis?
Sure, I can answer that, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you again. So my name is
pleasure
Julia
having
Mandeville
you.
from the Barbados Association of Endometriosis and PCOS, and endometriosis is defined as a condition where the cells that normally line, the womb or the uterus of a woman, they're found outside. So the cells similar to that are found outside of the uterus, and what happens is because they are found in external places like within the pelvis or like your digestive system or your urinary system, what happens is those cells respond to hormones like estrogen, and in response to the hormones, they can cause a lot of inflammation and pain. So chronic pelvic pain is one of the most distinguishing symptoms of endometriosis because of this. But endometriosis is also very highly implicated in infertility, as well as productivity loss and disruptions throughout whatever sphere you want to think of. So it's a very all-encompassing condition.
Julia, before we proceed with the next question, how did you get involved with the Barbados Association for Endometriosis and PCOS?
Thank you for that question. So I'm actually the co-founder of the organization. So I was there since inception. And I got my diagnosis of endometriosis in 2014. And this was after 15 years roughly of having the symptoms. Thank you. Yeah, I've learned to again, use this situation and make the best out of it.
Yes.
But I got diagnosed 15 years after having very, very severe symptoms of endometriosis. And endometriosis has 4 stages that go from minimal to severe. And upon diagnosis, I was told I have severe endometriosis. And so with that being said, I got my diagnosis. I was reading up, doing research to recognize that a lot of people in the research were not necessarily people that looked like me. Particularly Black women were not necessarily represented. And then I was also finding literature that said it was mainly in non-Hispanic white women or white women. And I was like, that's not making sense because here I am, a Black woman with endometriosis, but the literature is saying that it can't happen to me. And then just talking at home in Barbados, finding out so many other people had endometriosis, and we were like, something isn't right. We need to do something about this, and we started the organization to raise awareness.
Good stuff. I like
Powerful
that.
story there. But still with you, Julia, my question to you is, what's the significance of bringing awareness to endometriosis, and how does it correlate to your organization?
Okay, so great question. I'm going to answer for myself in Barbados, but I also think Abi can raise some really interesting points about the significance as well. So endometriosis is, like I said, significantly implicated in infertility. So about 50% of cases of infertility are attributed to endometriosis, right? So there's endometriosis is also implicated in some severe productivity loss whilst you're at school as well as in the workplace. And so a study was done a couple of years back, and 2/3 of the cost of endometriosis was associated with productivity loss, whilst 1/3 was associated with the healthcare cost of the organization of the condition. And so it really does impact the livelihood of individuals and their general well-being. Endometriosis is also implicated in depression and anxiety. So you have mental health implications. So women with endometriosis are 2 to 3 times more likely to have either anxiety or depression. So you have the mental health implications. So you can see it's very all-encompassing. You have the economic issues, you have the social issues, you have the familial and relational issues in terms of fertility and family planning. So why the organization thought it was important to raise awareness is because of everything I just outlined there, right? Your quality of life is severely impacted with endometriosis. And we just thought, for something that is so all-encompassing and so common, because close to 200 million women and girls worldwide have this condition, why is it that we don't know about it? And for those of us who do know about it, it feels as though we're like kind of just swimming in the abyss, for lack of a better term, because the systems are not set up to more effectively serve women and girls with endometriosis. And so we're raising awareness so we can have more streamlining within the healthcare system and the community to support people with endometriosis as well as their families.
Okay. So Abi, how did Lake Health and Wellness get involved with this cause?
So I think our journey really began, we did some research on fibroids, which is another chronic reproductive condition. And that was really eye-opening. What we found was that there was a general lack of awareness around fibroids and other gynecological conditions. We found that there was no information, no culturally relevant information. We found that women were suffering in silence. They didn't feel like they had enough support. Another issue that we found was that women just really didn't know what a normal period looked and feel like. So what we found, women were living with really severe menstrual symptoms for years and years and years, realizing that they had an underlying health issue. So what we looked at issue around fibroids, we really thought that we needed to do something about it. But then we also realized that about 30% of women with fibroids also have endometriosis. And so we thought it is actually wise for us to be all-encompassing and look at as many different chronic reproductive conditions as possible. And so that's how we really got into it. So we do feel it's really important in St. Kitts and Nevis in particular, because there is no information, there's no support for women living with chronic reproductive conditions like endometriosis, like fibroids. And so we just need a lot more information and a lot more awareness in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so therefore, our first conversation around endometriosis, we've done some work around fibroids, is this documentary. We feel that media, like a documentary, like film, is a very powerful way of raising awareness of these issues and delving into the families and delving into the patients and understanding all the issues and challenges that they go through, so that we can have a really meaningful conversation about what is needed in St. Kitts and Nevis, what policy is needed, what support is needed, what treatments are needed, and all of that. So we think it's really important to have this conversation, and we're really just great that we have this opportunity to host this film screening.
Great stuff.
Indeed. And still with you, Abi, why is it so widespread? Why is endometriosis so widespread, but yet it is so poorly understood?
Well, I think there's a lot of things. Women's health doesn't get a lot of attention. I think a lot of these conditions get trivialized. You get that kind of, oh, it's a women's issue, you just have to put with it, it's just a bit of period pain, don't worry about it. And so things like that get really trivialized. And then on top of that, when you think about it, it is a very sensitive topic. So women are not necessarily speaking up about the symptoms that they have. And therefore, as I said before, they're suffering in silence. They're not really reaching out for the support that they need. And so it doesn't really receive that attention. So we see that policymakers are not necessarily aware of the challenges that women are going through. And so therefore, they're not developing policy to address the issues. And so I think it's up to us as NGOs to raise awareness of these issues, have the conversations with the policymakers, so that we can really create a more empathetic environment for women that are living with these conditions, so that they can speak up. But on top of that, we also need to develop the support systems. We need to improve also the treatments that are available for women in terms of endometriosis, fibroids, PCOS as well. So I think a lot of the reason why there's not a lot of attention is stigma, the lack of awareness, lack of knowledge, lack of information out there.
Okay. Before we go to the break, I want to bring Rachel in. quickly. Rachel, why is it important for Bonnie to be in support with such a project?
Well, at Bonnie, we feel very strongly about supporting health and well-being initiatives. We have sponsored quite a few of those internationally in the past year. So we feel that it's important and it's our duty as an international organization to remember where we're from, because we're from St. Kitts and Nevis, we're based in Nevis. So this is something we feel very strongly about. And even when Abi contacted us to be a sponsor, I think she was only intending for us to join the list of sponsors. But when I brought this to the board, they were immediately sold. It was a resounding yes, and we became lead sponsor immediately. So that kind of shows how important it is to us, to our board, to our shareholder, to us as an institution. Like they were saying, the statistics are staggering. Everybody would know a woman, or would know a woman, or is a woman who deals with one of those issues. And to not have the support, or not know how to support them, or understand what they're going through is terrible. That's just the truth. It's terrible. You should have that information, and that information should be accessible to everyone. So we are more than proud to be a part of it, and to be part of making it possible for everybody to be able to attend free as well,
So can you tell us some of the signs and symptoms that you experience, and can you tell us about your diagnosis journey as well?
Sure. So I think, like most women who have gone through this experience, it starts with your first period, where you experience some pain and you think it's normal because your parents, your family members have gone through the same thing, and they may have experienced some sort of discomfort, and you think that is normal. But over the years, it has progressed. The pain increases, the discomfort, you're not able to perform your daily functions, going to school, work, anything, just normal daily activity becomes very challenging. And for me, it was in that way. And as I grew, unfortunately, the pain did not subside. It got worse, to the point where I had visited and had many consultations with gynecologists, and they were just saying that they're not finding anything, just prescribe me pain medications. And over the years, as I become a woman, it became worse. I've had to take days off from work. I still do have to take days off from work. And yes, the pain is not just an abdominal discomfort. It is severe, to the point where you can't walk oftentimes. There's pain in simple things that persons take for granted, like going to the bathroom, trying to urinate, having a bowel movement, pain during sexual activity, pain just in your muscles, in your bones, and you're not sure what exactly is happening. For me, as it progressed, I was not actually diagnosed until after my first child, and I was already in my 20s. I got diagnosed just 7 years ago, actually, and it wasn't by my gynecologist specifically. It was my general practitioner who I had this conversation with, and I was explaining the challenges that I was having and how difficult it was, and this could not be normal. And during that conversation, the topic of endometriosis came up, and it wasn't the first time that I heard about it, but it was the first time that I thought that it could be what I had. And she gave me the referral to my gynecologist, and it was through the procedure of laparoscopy that I got my diagnosis. And just having the knowledge, putting a name to the discomfort you're having is already a great relief, actually, because you know now what is happening to your body. It's not all in your mind. It is not something that you're conjuring. You're really having these experiences, and now you can try to get treatment. Unfortunately, the treatment options are not, I think, any help really to the women who are experiencing this. At least it wasn't for me. Pain medications to manage the pain. You're on birth control, hormonal control, but it isn't allowing you to still have the quality of life that you want to have. Nothing is really in place at the moment. The options you have are birth control with pain medications. You can have laparoscopic surgery to remove the endometrium that is within wherever they are, and it could be any part of your body. That's something that I've learned just recently from some other women who's experiencing this, and or complete hysterectomy. All of these are options, but none of them are cure.
Wow, so it's an incurable disease.
It is at the moment. I would like to say at the moment, because there is hope.
Because we're fighting,
and we are hoping. Yes, we're here fighting. So we're hoping that there can be a greater understanding as to what really is happening, why it is happening, and how we can cure this disease.
Did you experience, Gillian, any pushback from doctors to tell you, oh, this should work, or maybe that's not what it is? Or because I know this is something that comes up in the documentary, where I see this young lady, she goes to the hospital every week and month with these problems, and there's nothing that the doctors can tell. And I felt so bad, especially when her husband was pushing her through the hospital door, and she's not being heard. She don't feel like they understand. They're not being empathetic. Have you experienced any of those?
Yes, definitely.
Wow.
I do understand, and I feel Janet feels in that documentary. That was exactly my experience. When I explained the symptoms, unfortunately, I think the doctors don't take the women issues seriously. They think it's just a little pain and you should be able to manage. And before my general practitioner actually took me serious, my gynecologist, I had this conversation with him many, many times, and he did not even consider that as a possibility. And I think that's very disheartening. Yes. Because they're your physician that is specialized in this area, at least in women's issues, and you want them to be able to talk you through the possibilities and test you. Just something to be proactive, to make you feel like you're being heard and seen and acknowledged, and what you're experiencing is important enough for consideration. And that is the experience of most women. I think I'm feeling a little sorry for some of the doctors in that maybe they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the information to properly guide them. And I'm hoping that that's the case, and not that they have the knowledge, have the information, and sitting on it and not doing anything about it. So I would want to give the benefit of the doubt. And as Abi said, to have policymakers take this situation seriously. NCDs are a very real thing. And oftentimes the focus is on other NCDs, and not that they're not important as well, but these that are being not being seen and recognized as actual disease processes that women are facing needs to be taken seriously as well.
I like that, and I see all the ladies are shaking their heads, so I know they all agree. Go ahead, Andre.
Let's focus a little bit. Can you share some more about this premiere that's about to take place in St. Kitts and Nevis? Because to my knowledge, there was a screening on Capitol Hill where many lawmakers were present for that premiere. Are you hoping for the very same in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Well, I mean, our premiere, we're going to have a panel discussion afterwards, and we've invited a sort of multi-sectorial panel to take part. So we have representatives from the Department of Gender Affairs, from the Mental Health Association. We have Gillian will be joining us as well to share her experience. We've also reached out to the Ministry of Health and hope that they'll be able to join us. And so we're hoping really to have an interesting conversation about endometriosis, specifically endometriosis in St. Kitts and Nevis during the panel discussion, and really what are some of the solutions around tackling these issues. How can we provide more support to women? How can we develop policy that is gendered and it takes into account a lot of these issues? So as Gillian would have mentioned, we do hear a lot about non-communicable diseases, but a lot of the times we don't all think about endometriosis, fibroids, PCOS as non-communicable diseases. And I think it's important that we include them so that we can address a lot of these issues. But specifically about the documentary will be held on the 22nd of May, which is next Monday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. We're going to start with the documentary. It will be followed by a panel discussion. And also the audience could also ask questions, share their comments, share their views. And we're hoping it will just be a community conversation where we can really identify what the issues are, speak to the challenges, speak to what the solutions are, and really come up with some action items that we can then go forward and advocate on. So what we're hoping to do is prepare a nice document at the end of it and say, look, these are the issues that women are having, and these are the policies that we think that need to be in place, but also these are the things that us as NGOs need to do to make sure that we're supporting women who are living with these types of conditions.
Awesome. And you just make our job a little bit more easier this morning, because you just share the date, the time, and location for this premiere. But can you just share with us the registration process? Do persons just show up, or they have to register to be a part of the premiere?
So people have to register. It's a free event. People do have to register. So they can either just go onto our social media page. We have the event pinned to the top of our Instagram and Facebook, so they can find out how to register. There's a link to the registration page, and they can just go ahead and register. But also accommodate folks that are living in Nevis. So if you are in Nevis and would like to attend, we'd love for you to come as well. So we're organizing the water taxi and a bus as well when you get to St. Kitts to take you over to the Kuna Conference Center. And of course, all of this would not have been possible without our lead sponsor, Bonnie, the Bank of Nevis International. So we're grateful to them. They came on board very early on, very quickly, and we're just very, very grateful. Really appreciate all of their support. So thank you so much, Rachel. So we encourage everyone to come out, men, women, policymakers, to come out and get involved in the conversation as well. If it helps, refreshments will be provided, so you won't be hungry.
I like that plug.
So yeah, we do encourage everyone to just come out and have informative, educational time with us. I've seen the documentary. I find it's a very powerful documentary.
It is.
It covers the lives of very different. It is an American documentary, but we feel the themes are very relevant to all women who are living with endometriosis. It covers. It sort of follows the journey of 4 very different women as they go through their lives living with endometriosis. So we do encourage everyone to come. And I'm just going to give Julia a very big plug. So Julia is one of our regional partners. They're doing great work in Barbados. And Julia was the one that brought this documentary to our attention. And they're also premiering the documentary in Barbados. And Julia was one of the people that attended Capitol Hill. So maybe she could tell you a bit more about it, to speak about her organization. So kudos to Julia for all the hard work that they've been doing at the Barbados Association of Endometriosis and PCOS.